is this going to just be theater? I mean, these things always have an element of theater, but is there something on the other side of this? We've now seen so many of these very, very similar, whether it's Mark Zuckerberg or Jack Dorsey. Everyone goes up to the Hill. They do their thing. We all chatter about how regulation's coming, this, that, and the other thing. And what?
Where's the regulation? Where's the
I'm not saying there should be or there shouldn't be. I'm just saying, what is this all about otherwise?
So I think 90% of it is definitely political theater. I think it's also a way, well, I think the things to try to glean from this is based on how the committee asks questions or which questions that they're asking gives you an idea of what kind of regulations they would be going for, right? And so right now we're looking at two main issues. Privacy in terms of how your data is harvested and used, and that tends to be an issue that the Democrats tend to want to really dig into and look at. And then on the other side is you know, for the GOP, is that are you squelching voices? Are you?
I was going to say, by the way, I actually think I think the issue you're going to hear more and more today is going to be, are you squelching voices? Right. Why aren't you dealing with the military? Why aren't you bidding on Pentagon contracts? You know, what's going on here?
Right. That's what we heard from Kevin McCarthy.
Are you not an American company?
And so that's going to be the third part, which I think, so Sundar Pichai, the CEO, who is very eloquent, he's very articulate, he's unlike Zuckerberg or Dorsey in that he's much more grounded, level-headed, everyday type person. He's not going to come out with sort of bizarre, right, you know, responses.
Are you doing business in China? What's that about?
And that is going to be the key thing, because if you're doing business in China, two things, based on those earlier points, which is, if they're going to do business in China, it's going to be through a censor type of system, right, which is anathema to sort of the American sensibility, for one thing. But the other side is security. Like, the way the Chinese tend to view American companies coming to their market is, we open our market to you and you give us access to your stuff, right? Namely your technology and your know-how. And, you know, that's a security concern. That's
but what are you looking for him to slip up on, if you will? I mean, what do you think about? The reason I ask this is, you know, I interviewed him, you know, at the DealBook conference just about a month and a half ago, and we asked these questions. I mean, in fact, somebody, I won't say who, said this was sort of like practice for him to figure out, because he hadn't done a public appearance like this in a long time.
Right.
I don't know if there's some moment that somehow you're going to get out of him where he's going to say something that you weren't expecting.
He's very savvy, right? In that way, he's probably savvier than a lot of the other Silicon Valley executives. I think, first of all, they have the ability to pressure him much more. They have the ability to ask questions in a way that I demand an answer. Are you going to do business in China? I think that is a key thing to look for, a key takeaway that they want to get out of. And that, from a bipartisan perspective, I think both Dems and the GOP want to get. So that's something that they're aligned on. One of the few things that this Congress could be aligned on. So if they chip away at it, if they keep coming back to it, if they ask him in the really pointed way, let's see how he responds. I think whether or not he confesses, whether he sort of straight up says we are going to do business in China, this is what we're doing, or the degree to which he sort of dances around the topic gives you a sense of how serious.
But if he leaves it open, then what?
Well, leaving it open tells you that they want to do it. Whether they can actually achieve it or not is the issue. It's not just political pressure, it's also internal pressure.
Do you think they have
Google.
the same privacy concerns that Facebook does?
Yes, absolutely do. I think the common narrative is that Facebook has more data than anyone else.
They do.
They do, but Google is not that far behind. They have as much data in a lot of ways. A lot of the apps that people use on their phones, their Maps app, for one thing, is a huge part of how your email, people are using Gmail all the time.
Well, not only that, it's like Google knows as much as God, because every query you ever put in tells you the things that you would never say out loud to anybody else. Exactly. There was an article in the New York Times that kind of looks at the idea of all of this being information that they have about you, but you can't identify. Is that really true? Can they?
So yeah, I mean, that is a term of art, right? Personally identifiable information, right? They anonymize it. So what they could say is that, well, we don't know that Becky went to New Jersey, you know, Short Hills Mall, but we know that, you know, a woman aged 25 to 30, whatever, you know, went on a particular day who lives in the Northeast. That's about the most of the.
Paramus Mall.
Yeah.
Paramus,
all right. I know Short Hills is yours, Joe, but like.
Have you been to the Short Hills Mall?
I've never have, no.
That's one. It is. Yeah, that came off, that rolled off of your, you've been there.
I've been there, yeah.
Nice.
I've seen you there, maybe.
You might have. I don't,
Google knows that you went there.
Do you think in 2019, if you were going to look into your crystal ball at all, that there's any chance of
No, not in 2019, no. But I think there's less than less than 50% chance of that happening. Again, I think there's political grandstanding, but I also think, like I said, I think it's one of the few issues of bipartisan support. It's one of the few things that could actually pass, some form of regulation, some form of light legislation that, everyone's like, oh, there's a win there, and, we're keeping an eye on the powerful Silicon Valley